Welcome to Orkology video 14. This concept comes from a fan, and I've actually thought about it a few separate times because I got into a debate with somebody recently about whether or not orcs could be considered a cult. And they can't, because they're not doing things off of doctrine or religious belief, right? It's instinctual, it's built into their DNA, therefore not a cult, right? They're not trying to force you into their belief system, which is something they actually really don't like about the humans, by the way. But today on Orkology video 14, we're going to talk about why orcs can't be considered evil. Because I've had people ask, and no, they're not. Here's the thing about evil too, and I'm not going to dive too much into it, but everything exists in a gray area. There's not really true altruism. I'm sorry, that's my belief on that. I won't dive too deep into it. And there's not really true evil like you see in comics or in movies, things like that. Now, there's evil behaviors, right? But evil is learned. Evil is learned, and it is a choice. What the orcs do, it's biological, right? And the first thing that people get wrong is they judge orcs like they're humans. That is the first mistake. So in psychology and biology, intent matters, right? When judging good versus evil, when judging whether something is altruistic, intent matters, right? Difference between aggression, predation, cruelty, and sadism. So cruelty is when that being, that faction, whatever, they enjoy suffering. They like it. They thrive off of it. They feed off of it, right? Sadism is when they believe pain is the reward. And there's a specific scene where you see that the orcs don't really like cruelty. One, they don't really do the whole torture thing. But there's a scene in Grotsnick where I believe someone gets like their face ripped off, and the orcs are visibly like uncomfortable with it. Like, okay, you know, we defeated that guy, we crumped that guy, but also, oh God, right? That says a lot. So cruelty, sadism, all that stuff, that's not how orcs work, like at all. Orcs don't fight because they hate you personally. They're not fighting for doctrine. They're fighting for the fight. They fight because fighting triggers almost every positive instinct that their species has. Status, dopamine, purpose, social hierarchy, excitement, identity, community. To an orc, a good fight is basically just all of those things rolled together. And that's why orcs respect strength so much. They're biologically wired to seek out challenge and conflict, not helpless victims. In nature, predators tend to avoid unnecessary conflict, right? A wolf is not going to fight a bear for fun. A lion is not going to waste unnecessary effort on something that isn't worth the energy expenditure. So, like the orcs, however, like they're totally different. They actively seek bigger fights because their entire society evolved around escalating conflict. Bigger the war, the more successful the orc ecosystem becomes. It's biological. This means more spores, more resources, more social advancement, more stimulation, more WAAAGH energy. They're essentially a fungal superorganism biologically created for perpetual warfare. And psychologically, like this means that evil isn't really in the orc's vocabulary. Violence to an orc is not automatically evil. This is normalized behavior, and humans normalize things too. Sports, competition, roughhousing, martial culture, even risk-taking behavior. Now imagine a species where evolution pushed all of that to the extreme, okay? That's the orcs. Here's the important part. Orcs don't torture for pleasure like the Drukhari. They don't obsess over human suffering. That's not the point to the orc. The fight is the point. That's why in some stories, like, orcs will cooperate with humans versus like chaos or tyranids, right? Because there's a bigger fight to be had, and their current objective is no longer as important because the bigger fight is the more important fight to the orcs. The real enemy is whichever thing threatens the fight itself, right? Elderly, broken, injured, right? The orcs don't care. They're not here to completely eradicate the human race. They're here to fight the good fight. Like otherwise you have a dead galaxy with nothing left to crump, and that's boring. That doesn't help. So are orcs dangerous? Absolutely. Are they destructive? Without question. But are they malicious? No, not really. They're closer to like a biological, natural disaster that's developed like a sense of humor. Honestly, like that might make them a little bit more scary than truly evil factions. Evil can sometimes be reasoned with. Evil has goals. Evil has restraint. Evil can be negotiated with. But instinct does not stop. You can't convince like a hurricane to not destroy a coastline. You can't explain morality to a shark. And you cannot explain peace to a species that's literally engineered for war. To an orc, fighting is not a choice. It's psychological fulfillment. It's biological success. It's social status. It's reproduction, and it's purpose. A human soldier fights for ideology. An orc fights because his brain and body reward him for doing exactly what he was born to do. That's why orcs laugh in combat. That's why they smile when someone removes one of their limbs. That's why bigger wars create bigger WAAAGHs. The conflict itself feeds the species. So when people ask, are orcs evil? The real answer is no.